Welcome. Thank you for joining us on this edition of NEWS2. I'm Sandra Gumansing. Topping our newscast, the VI Police Department was first up on Wednesday to defend their fiscal year 2016 budget. Officials say the proposed budget is not nearly enough for the department to function properly. NEWS2's Erica Parsons has more.
The budget the police department would like to see was slashed by more than $20 million by the Office of Management and Budget. The governor, through OMB, submitted a fiscal year 2016 general fund budget proposal of $59.1 million. That's up 3% from the previous year. But police executives requested a $79.4 million budget.
The decrease in the budget request for the Virgin Islands Police Department will essentially force the department to reduce or curtail many of our community-based activities.
The cuts to the police department mean losing capital projects, surveillance equipment, the ability to transport fugitives, policing initiatives, and the ability to make ADA compliance changes. Overtime was also completely cut from the budget, a necessity officials say because of staff shortages. But lawmakers say the problems with funding will not change.
I'm going to ask you and the members of your leadership team to start thinking about funding sources outside of the general fund to be able to execute on these objectives.
The department has more than 200 vacancies. Lawmakers said they understand the challenge of recruiting new officers, but that's key to reducing overtime. Commissioner Delroy Richards also said new officers often leave because of the low starting pay, and in the next 2 years, more than 100 officers will be eligible to retire. Police officials say they're considering bonuses and other incentives to keep new hires from leaving, but again, they'll need more money to do that. Sandy?
Thanks for that, Erica. Well, after grilling the police department on its budget request, senators questioned Internal Revenue officials who defended their budget request Wednesday afternoon. Meanwhile, another law enforcement-related agency finds itself in the hot seat. Local nonprofits have been voicing out complaints about a halt in federal funding, most recently in the last week, and they're looking to the Law Enforcement Planning Commission for some answers. NEWS2's April Knight has more from the agency.
The Law Enforcement Planning Commission is taking heat after some local nonprofits across the territory cried out for the federal funds they say have stopped coming in the last few years. But LDPC tells a different story.
First of all, the funds have not stopped coming. Agencies fail to comply with the conditions of those grants, and that's what's put us in the problem that we are in right now.
Franz Christian has been LDPC director for 6 months. His staff of 8 handles federal grants stemming from Justice Assistance, Victims of Crime Act, and Violence Against Women Act, and hands out the funds to local agencies.
We send to just the complete criminal justice system, which is police, the AG office, corrections. We deal with faith-based organizations, non-profit organizations, quite a lot. It's quite a lot.
But according to the LDPC, the responsibility for keeping the money coming also falls on the shoulders of grant recipients, some of whom they say were not entirely up to date on their obligations.
The biggest concern that we have right now, the biggest problem that the agency has right now is the lack of proper documentation coming back to us. Maybe in a sense, we did have failures because, we did not follow up to make sure that that needed information was provided to us. But those things can be corrected.
Christian did disclose that there was an audit of LDPC released in 2012. He says it's making it a little harder for his office to access the federal monies, but he says this should not affect the local agencies on the receiving end. Reporting for NEWS2, I'm April Knight.
Now, Director Christian did commend Women's Coalition for submitting paperwork on time. NEWS2 will keep you updated. Meanwhile, very few updates on the status of funds expected by the Family Resource Center. Executive Director Vivian St. Just said she considers the Department of Human Services current in their obligations. The substance abuse prevention grants supposed to go through the Department of Health are still in limbo. The grant benefits 4 other agencies, including the Sisterhood Agenda on St. John and the VI Resource Center for the Disabled on St. Thomas. St. Just said they are waiting for information from the AG's office on the status of their contracts. Similarly, the Women's Coalition is in the same boat as the Family Resource Center. The federal grants they were supposed to receive are administered through the Law Enforcement Planning Commission, and those funds are held up. Women's Coalition executives are supposed to meet with the LDPC director Thursday to determine the status of those funds. Well, another agency feeling the pinch from budget cuts is KidScope. KidScope was born with a grant from the Law Enforcement Planning Commission to serve as child victims of abuse, neglect, and sexual molestation. Director Dilsa Capdeville says child advocacy has always been her passion, a passion that has been making a difference for many families.
A little 2-year-old girl around the field was badly beaten. She was molested for an extended period of time.
Dilsa Capdeville remembers 2-year-old Shaquana Annette, who was killed by her mother's boyfriend in 1992.
But I worked with the police on that case. And in 2 months before election that year, they passed a bill where and a law now that child abuse is a felony.
Shaquana's case is one of the driving reasons for what Dilsa Capdeville does at KidScope, the first child advocacy center in the Virgin Islands, created in October 1997.
Many years ago, I was called to the morgue by the pathologist, and I saw so many dead children and dead women who had been abused that it moved me to a place that I said if I could do anything.
Capdeville, who was born and raised in St. Thomas, worked for 7 years with the Family Resource Center as a domestic violence counselor.
But my mother believed when you lived in a community, you had to give back. She told my sister and I that we would have to do volunteer work.
Prior to that, she was the assistant administrator for children, youth, and families at the Human Services Department.
We support children, we encourage them, we work with children and their families. We work with children. We have a forensic interview suite there because a lot of our work is done with children who've been abused or sexually molested. We prepare children to testify in court. Our budget has been cut. We are very fortunate to be contained in the governor's miscellaneous budget, and that comes through Human Services, and we do get an allotment. Unfortunately, this year, for whatever reasons, the allotments are over a quarter late. But it's challenging when you don't have sufficient money. But we're trying and working within our means for the time being, but still providing quality, not necessarily quantity. But we're still there. I would encourage anybody that wants information to give us a call.
Now, KidScope serves about 300 to 400 children and parents. Capdeville says she needs about $24,000 a month to keep KidScope going. The organization currently has 3 staff members. Now, if you would like to help, you can call 340-714-1012. Well, a week-long series of activities addressing trauma in the territory, that's what the Office of the Governor's Early Childhood Comprehensive Systems has in store this week. Activities started Monday, June 8th. You can catch the Thursday event at Windward Passage from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Residents are invited to share their views and help address the issue of trauma. Then on Sunday, a family bazaar at the fort from 12 noon to 4 p.m. The VI Pulse Drum Corps will kick off the program, and Unlimited Sounds will provide the music. In other news, Acting Governor Osbert Potter said the MAP administration is keenly aware of the circumstances surrounding the CMS decertification of Seaview Nursing Home. According to Potter, they're working with Human Services on making sure that the residents of Seaview are cared for as they try to resolve the situation.
One of the findings is for sure the patient care. Definite things that were mentioned with regard to patient care that we now have to take a look at collectively. Well, what we are doing is trying to find what is the best way and the best approach to making sure that these individuals remain in the territory. That's first and foremost.
And keeping our eye on the economy, here's the New York Stock Exchange with our stock market watch. As you can see, everything up. The Dow up 2, NASDAQ 62, S&P 500 25. Coming up on News 2, 8 students of the AZ Academy class of 2015 are proud graduates. We'll have highlights from the commencement ceremony. We'll be right back. Caps, gowns, tassels, and smiles were in large supply yesterday at the AZ Academy graduation ceremony. 8 seniors, the largest graduating class in AZ Academy history, received their diplomas and words of encouragement and wisdom from guest speaker Winona Hendricks, Executive Director Paula Heller, and valedictorian Sabrine Khalid.
Now a little message to the amazing graduates. Don't live your life pleasing others. Have fun with whatever you decide to do. And in order for others to accept who you are, you must accept yourself. And with acceptance comes happiness. And I'm glad I have found mine with the help of all you beautiful people who sit in front of me and who have helped me. St. Croix is my home, and you guys are an amazing family. I will never forget my roots.
Congrats to the graduates. Now, lots of graduation ceremonies on tap for the weekend. For you to mark on the calendar, we have All Saints Cathedral School's ceremony that will be held on June 12th at 7 p.m. at the Cathedral. And Tilly School will be held the following day, June 13th, 5 p.m. at the MCM Center. Ivana Eudora Ken is also on June 13th at 4 p.m. at the DM Wheatley Gymnasium. The very next day, Sheldon Molly High School students will receive their diplomas. That's June 14th, 5 p.m. at UVI Sports and Fitness Center. 7 days scheduled for June 14th at 10 a.m. Educational Complex over in St. Croix, CTEC, June 15th at 4 p.m. Also at the Educational Complex. Adult Education, June 16th, 6 p.m. Educational Complex, Central, June 17th, 2:30 p.m. at the Central High Gymnasium Complex, June 18th, 4 p.m. at Island Center. Well, just a quick note, the Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority has scheduled a power interruption on Thursday, June 11th. Approximately 83 customers in the St. Thomas Content Gut area will be affected from 9 to 10 in the morning. The interruption will be caused by crews transferring primary lines to a new pole. Motorists are advised to be careful when driving and to observe traffic directions in the area, while WAPO officials say they'll do their best to get their power back up as soon as possible. Well, another meeting set for those concerned. Senator Marvin Blyden extends an open invitation to business owners and residents living in the Bavoni, Nada, Mariendal, and Friedenhoy communities to attend a town hall meeting regarding the status of the Brookman Road construction project. Now, it will be held on June 24th at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on the Nada basketball court. Speakers include Mr. Wyston Benjamin, Federal Program Manager at Department of Public Works, Mr. Nelson Petty, Project Manager of Department of Public Works, and Mr. Andy Smith, President at Island Roads Contractor. The goal, they say, is to have an active participation and meaningful dialogue to identify solutions to the issues. A new executive director has been named to head Catholic Charities of the Virgin Islands, according to an announcement from the agency. Andrea Schillingford has been tapped to replace Michael Aiken, who retired this year. In her new role, Schillingford will take the lead on how programs will be run and how projects will be handled. She served under Aiken as the assistant director for 8 years. The Americans with Disabilities Act division of the Office of Governor is holding 3 town hall meetings to allow residents with disabilities to share their concerns with members of the MAP administration. The first of these meetings will be held on Friday, June 12th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Great Hall in UVI's St. Croix campus. A sign language interpreter will be present, but if anyone requires additional assistance, such as hearing aids, Territorial ADA Coordinator Jamila Russell can be contacted at 772-1000. Well, the American Red Cross of the Virgin Islands installed some smoke detectors and delivered preparedness education last Saturday to families from the Williams Delight community, and it was all part of their home fire preparedness campaign. With this nationwide campaign, the American Red Cross seeks to reduce deaths and injuries from home fires by as much as 25% over the next 5 years. Home fires, they say, are the disasters that the American Red Cross mostly responds to each year in the U.S. Virgin Islands and around the nation. Red Cross volunteers will hold installation visits in St. Thomas and St. John as well. We will share those dates with you as soon as they become available. You may have noticed scientists from the Centers for Disease Control, they're in the territory for the next few weeks. They're collecting information and samples from residents regarding the chikungunya. Now, they plan to visit roughly 700 homes in 3-man teams to interview residents and collect blood samples to test for the mosquito-borne illness. The entire process should only take 15 minutes, and participation is completely voluntary. Experts hope to evaluate the overall impact of the recent chikungunya outbreak on the VI. Well, be sure to stick around. Your News 2 AccuWeather forecast comes your way next.